My grandpa Clarence had a friend named Dave, and I've started to get more acquainted with the dying process and what that's like. And Grandpa told a story that when Dave was dying in the hospital, he became unconscious. And all these different people from his past and friendships and family were coming in to visit him. And they would say, like, remember, he can't respond, but he can still hear you. So he can hear everything you're saying, so watch what you say. And so Dave actually, miraculously, got better. He recovered completely and was walking around the street. Then he comes up to his friend named Joe on the street and says, "Joe." And he's like, "Dave." He said, "Joe, I was in the hospital dying, and you didn't come to see me." And he goes, "How did you know?" He's like, "Oh, I could hear everything. And I knew everyone was in that room, and I knew that you did not come to visit me." And then he gave him a big hug, and they reconciled. It was just fine. This story reminds me of what Jesus tells the people today, because he says, "We ate and drank in your company, and you taught in our streets." And he will say to you, "I do not know where you are from. Depart from me, all you evildoers." That's a scary situation to be in. Jesus is saying, "I do not know you." And so we want to be in a position where Jesus does know us. A similar story that was told to me in seminary has always stuck with me, because a professor was giving a college course, and at the very end there was a test, and all the questions on the test are going to count for credit. So he hands out the test, and all the students went through, the brightest students went through the fastest, and they came to the last question and saw that on that last question was written, "What is the first name of the woman who cleans this classroom?" And the brightest students who finished first, they went up to the teacher and said, "Is this one for credit? Is this a joke, or is this true?" They're like, "No, this is one of the heaviest questions on the test. It's going to count for the most points." And sadly, they went back to their desks. They knew they had seen her. She was tall, she had brown hair, and she was in there almost every other day that they saw her, but they could not know her name because they never actually spoke to her. And so this is similar, that not only do we not know Jesus sometimes, but he is going to say he did not know us. Jesus is Dave in that story, lying on the bed, sick and dying. Jesus is also that woman who cleans the classroom after all the college students are done. It really puts us into perspective of how the least of us become the most important. At the end of this passage, Jesus says, "Behold, some are last who will be first, and some are first who will be last." This is called the great reverse. And it's not really the fact that, "Oh, I want to be first in the kingdom, so I'll let you go ahead." Or, "I don't really want to be caught and scolded by Jesus, so I better learn the name of the cleaning lady, or I better, go visit people in the hospital." No, that becomes where we are as children. When we become wise and adults in the faith, we do it because it is good to do. Because we are loving Jesus, and he is loving us back when we do these actions. Not so we can pass a test and get a passing grade, not so that we can, look good and be first in the kingdom, but we do it because we're imitating Jesus himself. Through his whole life, he served the poor. He was already the most highest in the kingdom. He was already the right hand of God's throne. He was already God himself. So there's no more higher for him to get. The reason he did these things was because he is pure love. And we, who receive the Eucharist every week, and we look at this cross every single week, we get to aspire to that and imitate that with our very lives. So as we go into this 21st Sunday in Ordinary Time, we're invited by this passage to know, love, and serve Jesus in the very least of our brothers and sisters, whether they be cleaners of a classroom, whether they be the sick in the hospital, or whether they be a child who doesn't really have a voice or doesn't really know where he's going. Let us go forward in peace and in prayer and to serve those who are least among us. Amen.